Thank you for joining us for another mentor meetup. Today we have the pleasure of spending an hour with Agustina Sartori. I really enjoyed hearing her story and learning about the amazing work she's done. So I expect that you're going to love hearing her story too. Agustina, go ahead, take us away.
So yeah, I'm happy to be here and thank you for the invitation. So yeah, I'm excited to be here and to tell you a little bit about my story. So I'm Agustina. I'm originally from Uruguay, from South America. I don't know if anybody's been nearby there, next to Argentina, south of Brazil. Very small country with just 3 million people. But we have a great and we have a lot of people that actually work on technology. So a lot of engineers work from there remotely for companies all over the world, a lot of them with companies that are in the US. So as being like a small country, we always start thinking about being global, right? So our mentality is always like, okay, how can we impact and how can we get what we develop somewhere else to a different country, right? So I'm originally, I studied engineering. I studied telematics engineering in Uruguay. It's a combination of telecommunications and computer science. I always liked more the computer science side of things. So I chose that path while I was studying in the university there. And I was studying in Uruguay, and on my last year, I had to actually do like a final project, which was a year project that we had to actually work on a technology, a product that we want to develop. So at that time, I was actually thinking like, okay, what should I do, right? Should I do just a project of something that I think is interesting, or should I do something that solves a real problem, right? So I decided that I wanted to do something that was a problem that I was going through, right? And imagine if we think about engineering in Uruguay, I don't know, maybe 10 years ago at this point, right? 10 years ago, like it was not very common that there were a lot of women in technology, right? And I think this is a struggle that even today in the US we see, right? Of how can we get more women into engineering and to the technical careers, right? So I was the only girl in the class. I teamed up with 2 classmates and I convinced them to do a project that had to do with makeup. So imagine it was quite a thing for my classmates to actually accept, but they didn't know much what to do. So they were like, okay, fine, you have a topic, let's do it, right? So I'm like, awesome. And the idea that I had was, for I don't know how many of you you wear makeup or beauty products, right? But the idea was to help people find the right product for them. And one of the big struggles are for the people that use foundation, and for the people that don't know what foundation is, it's a product that you put on your skin that has a similar color to your skin, and it's good for like imperfections, right? And to make your skin more glowy, right? So, but it's important, the challenge there is that your skin tone affects very much the color of the color of the product. So it needs to match your skin. So this is a huge challenge. How do you match your skin? So this is the problem that I wanted to solve, how to match your skin. So what does this mean? It means that even though it sounds like, oh, it's makeup and it's beauty, actually it's a very complex problem to solve. That is, how can we extract the color from a face in a very accurate way and then match it with something that will actually show in a way that it's like kind of like looks good on you, right? So that's what I convinced my classmates to work on. We were working a year on it. And that's when the journey of my company started, right? So if you see on the left there on the slides, if you see this first violet prototype there, that was literally our first prototype. So it was a screen that at that time, the iPads, for instance, they were just launching and they didn't have like a very high fidelity camera, right? So we had to do like an engineering there to use a Canon camera with a webcam to generate the live view. It was quite a challenge, I would say. And that was the first prototype we made. We got the support from local government institutions that supported people building innovation. And so through that, we managed to actually start our little project. Now, we managed to get L'Oreal, which is one of the biggest makeup brands in Uruguay and in the world, right? And to actually help us as mentors in the program. So we started like that. They were mentoring us, and by the end of the project, a year after, and they told us, "Hey, I want this in the stores." And it didn't look like this, by the way. It had evolved already to look something nicer, right? And we said like, "Oh, you want to put it in the stores, like in a real store, in a retail store?" And they're like, "Yeah, I think this works." We are like, "Oh, okay, great." So like we made a license agreement without knowing much what we were doing. And they signed an agreement for a year with us for 5 different stores to have this prototype. So I always say that I ended up in entrepreneurship really not knowing what I was doing, right? I was like just right out of college, in college actually, when I started it. Didn't had any work experience. I had just worked, well, I had interned in 2 companies. So I had worked 6 months in a software development company, 6 months in another software development company. And then now suddenly I had my company. I remember my mother telling me, "Agustina, so now what? Like you need to provide this. Like, what are you going to do? You're not going to get a job?" I'm like, "No, I'm not going to get a job. I mean, this is my job. I'm starting a company." And she was like, "Are you crazy? Like, you have good grades. You can go and get like a real job." I'm like, "No, I'm going to start my company. This is my job. Like, I am going to create jobs." So it was, for me, it was very, I ended up in this because I always felt passionate about creating things, right? And creating technology, right? But the reality is that I didn't, as I said, I didn't have much experience. So the path I'm going to talk about, right? Like right now, that is a story of success that could have gone wrong many times, right? Started in a very amateur way, right? And the learnings on the way that I'm going to talk about are really how I think we can learn by doing, right? And that's the story of my life. I was like, I studied engineering, but I didn't have a business background. I didn't have connections. I didn't have a lot of work experience, but I ended up starting my company, and 8 years after, now I'm going to get into the story, but ended up selling it to Ulta Beauty, which is one of the biggest retailer in the US of makeup. So imagine, stand here 2010, Uruguay, this girl that finished engineering, has her prototype, sold it to like a local brand, right? And then I started thinking, okay, we need to sell this to other companies, right? So what did I do was like, well, I had me and my co-founder, we were 2 at the time. We got interns that were interning from the university, and we started pitching it to other companies. And in that path, it was of course very challenging because we were a very small team and we didn't know much what we were doing, right? So we encountered Startup Chile, which was an accelerator, and that it was in Chile, that actually brought together 100 different companies from everywhere in the world. Okay, so Startup Chile gave you $40,000. You had to move to Chile for 6 months. And you could then receive like mentorship and money, right? Asking you for no equity at all. This program, by the way, if anybody is now has an idea or has a prototype or has a company, is still there. So if you guys want to apply, it's actually pretty amazing. No equity, $40,000. And for me, what I got from this program was the people I met. So 100 companies from everywhere in the world, right? Around 40% are actually American companies. Chile is making a big kind of push for trying to get entrepreneurs from the US because they want to also, in a way, like nurture the entrepreneurs from other places in the world, which may not know a lot about entrepreneurship, right? So I moved to Chile. I lived 6 months there. I interacted with a lot of entrepreneurs from everywhere in the world, and I learned a lot. I learned a lot from my American entrepreneurs that were there, my classmates, right? That lived in San Francisco, that were like, some of them had passed through Y Combinator, and some of them were not accepted to Y Combinator and were trying to raise money. So they said, why don't we go 6 months there? They're giving us free money and we can spend time there building our technology, right? So it made sense as well. So that opened me a new thing in my mind, which was, well, I felt like, as a person from South America, right, that had gone to the US just for tourism or to travel, I started feeling that I was not very different to the other entrepreneurs that were on the program, right? I mean, people came from all over the world. And I sort of, at the beginning, I all my life, I was like, oh, Silicon Valley, right? And you idealize like what is there and the entrepreneurs that are there, and you know, like what entrepreneurs know and what I need to know to actually start a business. And am I good enough? Am I not? Do I know enough? Do I not? Right? All these insecurities that you have when you're starting a business, right? And more when you're doing it for the first time with not a lot of experience. And that gave me the push of saying, you know what? Yes, I can do this, right? And I don't feel I'm that different to entrepreneurs that are in the US. So that's when I decided I wanted to come to the US. So that's when this journey starts. That this photo, I took it in 2014 in the BART in San Francisco. I live in San Francisco now, by the way. I don't know if I said that. I've been living here for 6 years. So I took this photo. That was when I stepped San Francisco, and I see this and say, this is a startup city, so start something. And I was like, yes, this is what I came to do here, right? Imagine this girl coming from, no, I literally came with my bag and said, I'm going to meet people. I don't know what I'm going to do, but I'm going to meet investors, entrepreneurs. I'm going to try to get clients with my software, right? And it was hard, right? It was hard to arrive to a place where I didn't have any connections. I didn't know the market. I didn't know who to call, who to talk to, right? But I think it speaks a little bit to what you need to have as an entrepreneur, right? Of saying like, well, you never know the answers, right? You never know how is the way to go, what things should we do, are sure about the strategies. You're just going to discover them. And you're going to make a lot of mistakes, and you're going to have a lot of questions, but you need to find people that help you on the way, right? So as I continue over time, in 2015, we got accepted into 500 startups, which was amazing. I mean, I started spending much more time there at the time. And of course, 500 opened me a lot of doors to connections and other entrepreneurs. And I was kind of like feeling like, okay, I'm understanding more this market, right? Still, I was struggling to get funding, right? I was struggling to get clients. I was pitching to clients, and clients were like, what, you're a startup? Like, where is your team in Uruguay? Where is Uruguay? What are you talking about, right? All these like questions that people are like, why are you here? Like, I don't trust you, right? All of that when you're starting a company, it happens, right? Because you don't have the credibility that a big company has. You just have yourself. So how do you build actually a bond and trust with a company, with an investor, with a mentor? Asking somebody to mentor you is actually a big investment for the mentor, right? So like, how do you create that bond and that trust with other people that you need to make your company grow, right? That's a huge challenge, right? And it's something that I realized that in the end, now looking backwards, that everybody that helped me on the way were because they believed in me. They saw something on me. They saw me, and they saw passion, they saw opportunity, they saw something different, right? And I think many times we are like, okay, that something is different, and then it's like we are kind of scared of it, right? Or we are a minority, and we feel like maybe I'm Latina, and I'm like, I didn't grow up in this country, you know, I didn't receive an education in this country. And you feel less, right? At least I many times felt less, right? But I think today, as I look backwards, I learned that feeling that way was actually not the right thing. The uniqueness is about understanding which are those things that make you different. Why do they make you different? And acknowledge to whoever you talk to that this is a strength, right? And why it is a strength, right? For me, you could say like, oh, you're from Latin America, you didn't study here, you don't know the culture that well. I mean, you don't have connections, but there's something special about that, right? There's something special about the fact that, well, yes, my team is in Uruguay, still in Uruguay, even after the acquisition of Volta, but I have access to a pool of talents that maybe a person here does not, right? There's a lot of technology developers there, and they're much cheaper than in other places in the world, right? So I can scale a company, and I have the connections to scale a company, right? I am a woman, and I also am an engineer. So I understand technology from the consumer point of view, and also from what it takes to develop something, right? I have a global vision, right? I understand the markets not only now in the US, but bring all this knowledge from Latin America that in a way, if you're here in the United States, well, actually your customers are not only people that were born here, right? The Latino population is a huge percentage of the market. So do you have people in your company that understand that? Well, I don't know, but I understand it. I know what my people, look for and want and need, etc. So I think, and this I like to say this because I think each one of us probably have our weaknesses, and each one of us feel like kind of like, oh, I don't have this, I don't have that, or I come from here, and then it's like, well, turn it out into an advantage, right? Don't think about it as a disadvantage. Think about it about it. Why is it that makes me unique, right? And I think that makes all the difference in our thinking for anything in life. By the way, I think I'm always like, I don't like to. I'm not of the approach of complaining that I'm a woman and it's hard to raise money. I'm like, you know what? I'm a woman and it's hard to raise money, yes, but it makes me different, right? And why is this special? And they will remember me. People, when they meet me, they remember me, right? Maybe if I was like the other people, they wouldn't, right? So I think we need to change our mindset there. And that's important for anything we do, especially when we are starting a company, right? So 2016, fast forward, I raised $2 million from a fund here in the US. And after that, 2 years after, was when Ulta acquired us. In the middle, of course, we had a lot of clients. So we worked with Estee Lauder, with, I don't know, Clarins, with Duty Free, with Neiman Marcus, a lot of the big brands and retailers. So at the time of like from 2016 to 2018, it was kind of the peak of when we were having a lot of clients here in the United States, right? My team was a bit bigger, and we managed to really grow more the company here, based in the US, keeping our team, of course, development team always in Uruguay. The acquisition is a story of aligned vision and aligned, like, I would say, people liking each other, right? Ulta was my client for 2 years, and suddenly it was, 2 years ago, the acquisition. So at that time, augmented reality started being like a thing. And I'm going to go show you actually what the technology looks like, so you get a sense now in a bit. But augmented reality started being like a thing, and my company had like transformed at that time into an augmented reality beauty company, right? So from try on your face virtually, like the filters you see, but for makeup, right? From shade match, that was what we started, from skin analysis, that was about understanding the conditions of your skin to recommend you products, right? So we involved more to a very specialized beauty computer vision company, right? So at that time, Ulta really believed that technology was kind of like a big part of their needs to be embedded, and a big part of their strategy, right? So when we were talking about what is the next step, what are we going to develop, the conversation ended up being like, hey, there's a huge alignment of my vision with the company's vision. And actually the teams work really well together, right? And they saw an opportunity of, instead of just having a contract, why didn't they acquire us? And if they acquired us, we could build the future together. So for me, that was the opportunity to have this global impact that, it's amazing. It's one of the reasons why I started this company. I wanted to have a global impact and generate jobs and generate talent, right? So yeah, Ulta is the largest beauty retailer in the country, 1,200 stores, also e-commerce. For the people that use makeup, I'm sure they know about Ulta. The discounts are starting now this weekend, so we have a lot of work to do. And it has been exciting to be part of a bigger corporation. And something about this story also, it's like, it was pretty amazing that this American company took the risk of actually buying this company of a foreign person that started it back in Uruguay, where all their teams are there, while Ulta is not international, right? So that was very special, I think, for all of us. And I think it's a proof that if you're really passionate about something, and if you really have a vision, and like there's alignment between you and your clients and anybody that is around you, and people believe in you, like amazing things can happen, right? And this is possible, right? I think this story is also, I mean, I always say, right, like if I could do it, right, if I could do it, that I was just right out of college from Uruguay with not a lot of knowledge or resources to how to start a company, then anyone can do it, right? I think it's a matter of like perseverance, of trying and failing and trying. And I can tell you, a lot of times we nearly closed the company because we didn't have funding, because we didn't have, it's not going to be easy. It's like it was full time for 8 years of my life, right? Every day, every hour, right? But it's possible, right? And I think in those moments that you are like, I can't do this anymore, because you're gonna have them, right? If you want to start your own business, and even maybe at college you have it sometimes, like, I'm so tired, right? I can't do this anymore. Then that's why I feel it's important to go back to the why. Like, why did you start this initially, right? And the need of really actually understanding and saying, okay, like, I'm doing this for a reason. I'm not just starting something because I just have this idea and I randomly want to execute it. You have a reason behind it, right? Or you believe in the struggle that you're going through, or you actually, I don't know, you believe on the reasons behind it. You want to make an impact. You want to generate change, right? There's a lot of reasons, but it's important for us to acknowledge and identify them, because those are the things that are going to maintain you alive when you are like, you know, in your worst times, right? And for me, it was my team, right? I always believed that innovation could be generated from Uruguay, and it was something that I got a lot of pushback. So I'm like, you know what? No, I'm going to prove everybody that this is possible. And our software is the same quality or better than that software is developed in Silicon Valley. Why? Like, I want to show this to the world, right? And when I was in the worst moments, I always thought about my team and said, they're trying so hard there. And they believed everything, all of this that I imagined and I envisioned, they believed in it. And they're working nonstop. Just because I had an idea one day and I woke up and I said, I'm going to do this, right? And it's like, I'm responsible for them. They have families, right? They chose to work for me. So then you think about that and you're like, well, there's nothing that can stop me, because I can be not motivated for some reason. I can be sad, but wait a minute. Like, what about those people? They believed in me. I can't let them down, right? So those things were the things that maintained me kind of alive when I was going through very tough times, right? And I think also another thing that I always felt very passionate about was about the impact that we can have, like you guys can have with your own stories in your communities, right? So for instance, just some numbers of the Latino population, for example, Latinos launch 86% of new businesses in the US. And this, I think, is a start of the last like 5 years. And you would say, like, do people know that? Well, I don't think they know that, right? Because the perception may be different, right? Latinas, like women from Latin America, create businesses 6 times faster than any other group in the US. Like, I actually didn't know that. I learned that like a couple of years ago. And I was like, wow, that's amazing. In 2021, the purchasing power of Latinos is projected to be $1.8 trillion in the US alone, right? So you look at these numbers and you're like, hey, there's a lot of things going on, right? And I am a big part of this and I am a voice, right? So it expands in a way also your message of like the why am I doing this? And it helps you also understand that you're doing something for yourself because this is your company and you started it and you're passionate about a topic. But the impact that we're generating is much more. You're generating jobs, you're generating change, you're generating a lot of things, right? So I think it's important that we understand and you build it on the way, right? It's not like you need to know this today, but it's important that when we are starting something and we're starting a new project and we want to start a company and we're going to generate change and we're responsible for it and we should own it, you know? And so I think that's something nice, and it's something to always remember, right? So I'm going to show you here this video. So the first one is the try-on experience. You can actually use it on the Ulta Beauty app. You can see that I'm changing the shades of lipstick. So it uses computer vision. We identify the face, the all the sections of the face, from the lips to the eyes, everything, and we actually represent the finish, coverage, and texture of the product. So imagine technologies that I use like in gaming and things like that. That's the kind of thing that we use. We process in real time in the graphics card. So it's actually not trivial to build this stuff. And it's not trivial to do it in a realistic way, right? That was our focus always, to make it look real, right? So imagine we were creating this kind of stuff when augmented reality was not even a thing, right? 8 years ago, who knew about augmented reality, right? So it was certainly much more challenging to develop things, I would say, when we started, when we had a lot of hardware restrictions, right? Like, I mean, that computer that you saw, I mean, it didn't process, it didn't have the capacity to process the kind of mathematical calculations we need to do to render these things in real time. That one that you see there is the shade matching. So this one is more about understanding your skin tone, right? So it's less about the visual representation. It's more about understanding what to take into consideration on the face to actually extract an accurate color, right? Which is also a very complex problem. And you can imagine that these days also, it's like, for us, it was always important, but it's even more important now that our technology can work with any skin tone, with any physical characteristics, right? So we work a lot on that area to make sure we use balanced data sets for our machine learning algorithms to make sure that we are being the most diverse as possible, that we are like, our technology works for anyone that uses it, right? And then the third one is our skin analysis technology, that it's more about understanding your skin conditions. So you will see there that it will kind of diagnose your skin, and we also use AI to receive recommendations according to, for instance, like your past purchases, plus reviews that we know that the products that are good for you according to your characteristics, according to your needs, your goals, etc. So it's kind of a combination of everything, where we recommend you the best products for you, and also diagnose like what are we seeing on your face, right? And all of this is available in the Ulta Beauty app if you want to give it a try. And if you have any feedback, also you can send it to me. Then the other thing is like that I found very important as part of this journey that I wanted to tell you, and I know I have 3 minutes and then we go to questions, is the importance of being part of an ecosystem, right? And the importance of really finding communities to connect, of finding people similar to you, people that are in your same industry, people that are trying to solve the same problems, to actually learn from them, right? I think it's important also to find where to give, right? I felt many times that the times that I gave, I got much more, even myself, out of it than what I gave, I felt I gave, right? And these things many times are the things that it's about generating opportunity, right? To others and even to yourself. You never know what will happen and where, right? So I think that's very important. And as part of as being an entrepreneur, it's all about also like giving, right? Because you will need a lot of help. So you better help other people too, right? Because like it comes, and I really believe in it, everything you give comes back, right? So I think it's important that we have that as kind of our core as entrepreneurs, because we will need to ask for help and people will need our help. And there's somebody that is starting a business right now that could use my help, right? Because somebody helped me. So mentorship, it's important to find and surround yourself with people that know more than you, and people that can help you in certain areas. Accelerators, for me, they were a huge part of my path. I mean, I learned a lot from them at different things from different accelerators, but they really helped me get to the next level, and many times helped me connect with other entrepreneurs that I thought was key when you're starting a business, because it's a lonely path. So you need to have your network there with you. And then the other thing that I think is very important is to understand your weaknesses. So we all have our weaknesses, and I think that the way we make things work and the way we move forward in life, not only in your company, but it translates to life also, is understanding which are your weaknesses and what can you do to bridge that gap that you may have, right? It can be anything. It can be that you are not technical maybe, and you want to start a company in the technology space, but you don't have a technical background. So then if that's the case, like, you can bridge that weakness, right? It's, again, there's many paths to doing things. But I think it's important to understand and learn which are the gaps that you have, and what do you need on the other side to go forward, right? Whatever it is that you're doing, right? If it's building a prototype, if it's starting a company, if it's even in your job, if you're just gonna get a traditional job, right? So yeah, I think that's important. Well, the other thing I wanted just to say before the questions is, right now I'm part of Ulta Beauty now, so I'm part of the digital innovation team. So all my team joined Ulta with the acquisition. So we're now developing technology, but as part of Ulta Beauty. I live in San Francisco. I have 25 people in Uruguay from my team. And then Ulta is headquartered in Chicago. So pre-COVID, I used to travel all over. So from Chicago to San Francisco to Uruguay, that was my life. I lived basically in a plane. But now this year I've been all year in San Francisco, which is something pretty unique. But I think what the message I want to leave you today is, like, opportunities everywhere, right? And we are never ready for things. We're never ready to start things. We're never ready to, like, if we wait to be ready, then we'll never do it, right? And I think stories help us see that, right? I mean, you heard my story. I didn't know anything when I started. I was like very young and just had a dream and a passion, but I had drive and I wanted to make things happen. So I think that's the for me, that's everything, right? And things sometimes don't go in the right direction, and many times they didn't, but you need to be there to stand up again, because you know why you started, why this is important for you. So you need to continue, right? So yeah, I think that's everything I want to say today.
It was great to hear your story, and I loved seeing the students engaged with you. So thank you so much.
Thank you for inviting me. And Don, you have my email. So if any of you wants to write me an email, drop me a note or whatever, please feel free to write me an email.
Absolutely. You can find me at the Student Startup Center, and I'm happy to share her information with you.
Awesome. Bye-bye.